Yeah, he gotta go to a mental doctor on the December or something. Based in Purple, Tennessee. Yes, mama. Uh, they didn't could have him. They was walking around though. Man, come to my house and she put on my papers up. So, yeah, yeah. You thought he was sick. Yeah. Uh, what? Yeah. Yeah, I was supposed to knock you up, too. Yeah. That's good. My recording. My recording. I will tell you I love her. Good morning. I wish I could. I'm scared I can't drive. And I ain't got no way there anyway. Not parking.
Tivish type thing. Do
Right,
you mind
it's-
redacting that out?
No, Your Honor, and I actually was gonna try to speak to Mr. Sharp before
Okay.
we started court, wasn't able to yet, to let him know that there won't be any issues with that.
Thank
All
you.
right.
You're welcome.
I
Great.
appreciate that.
Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Steele, do you have that? Okay.
I believe Ms. Westmoreland, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Westmoreland. Almost there, Your Honor. No problem.
Can you try rebooting the router? Sure. Thank you. Your Honor, while we wait, I may briefly consult with Mr. Sharp on the time.
Okay. Check your email and make sure that's the most recent order. I'm gonna send it to you right now. Oh, yes, yes, yes.
What place?
Your Honor, I sent over the order to Ms. Percival. I'm about to forward it to everyone, but I just wanted to get it to you as soon as possible. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Right. 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 You do it, not working on that. You know, for the paperwork.
It's gonna take me a minute to read it all.
Part of this ruling.
If you look at the bottom of page 12,
Okay.
what's opinion on, I think it's where this discussion kind of goes into.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, on our last paragraph of page 12, maybe about 3 lines before the end
All right.
of the page, going on to page 13, and then I'm looking for more
Okay, I
conditional.
was looking down at the rulings part. Y'all could have maybe given me a heads up yesterday. I could have read this last night. Since we knew we would have Dennis on the stand this morning. And that is that if there's a foundation objection or a 403 objection, I'll rule on it at that point in time when the objection's made.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Does the state want to be heard about it beyond that? Okay. All right, are we ready to get the jury in? Okay,
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
all right, you want to go ahead and have, I guess it's just Mr. Dennis at this point, former investigator Dennis, okay. Retired Detective Dennis, okay. Anyway, let's get the jury in. Morning. Did we swear you yesterday? I don't know if we ever got that far.
I was sworn in the other.
And that was about it. Oh, okay. All right. Right. You've already, I'll just remind you, you're still under oath then. Okay. All right, thank you very much. Okay, retired Detective Dennis, I'll just remind you that you are still under oath. And Ms. Hilton, you can proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Investigator Dennis. How are you? When you were here previously, you testified about your involvement in the investigation of the shootings that occurred after the death of Donovan Thomas. Do you recall testifying to that?
Yes.
All right. And again, during that period, 2015, did you work with your partner, retired Sergeant Gaither, to assist in solving some of those shootings that occurred after the death of Donovan Thomas Jr.?
Yes.
As a member of the gang unit, when you first learned of the shootings that occurred after Donovan Thomas Jr. passed away, did the gang unit or yourself immediately begin investigating those cases as retaliatory shootings?
Yes.
How did the gang unit recognize or realize that some of these shootings were in retaliation of the murder of Donovan Thomas?
It usually was based on the victims of the shooting.
In the first days between January 11th and January 19th, were there homes that were shot at that were either family members or friends of Kenneth Copeland?
Yes.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I believe the microphone may not be working. Not yours, Ms. Hilton.
The witness mic,
The witness
Oh,
mic.
you just
Thank you.
pull it closer to you.
No, it wasn't on.
Oh, Ms.
I
Hilton.
don't know why I did, but.
Thank you. Can y'all hear it all right now?
Can you hear me?
Okay.
All right.
Where were those homes primarily situated?
Throughout the city, we had them popping up all throughout Atlanta.
Okay. Were there homes on Hendricks Avenue that were targeted in the days immediately following Donovan Thomas's murder?
Yes.
And the addresses that were associated with those homes was that 193 and 197 Hendricks Avenue?
Yes.
Also, was there a home of Mr. Copeland's sister, 878 Oakland Drive, that was targeted as well?
Yes.
How did the fact that homes that were of the family members of Kenneth Copeland factor at all in your investigation after the investigation of those shootings after Donovan Thomas's murder?
I'm going to object as irrelevant at this point unless more foundation is laid.
Overruled.
You may answer.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. The fact that the homes of Kenneth Copeland family members were targeted, how did that factor into your investigation as you began investigating these retaliatory shootings?
We basically would be notified by the patrol officer of the shooting. Usually they happen at night. And usually once they would give the name or they would provide us information indicating that it was a family member of.
Objection, confrontation clause.
Can you rephrase?
Sure. Without saying what any of the officers told you, just how did it factor into your investigation?
We basically gathered information as they came in, and pretty much every night we had a different shooting and we were tasked with investigating it.
Okay. Outside of Kenneth Copeland, did you learn of other homes of individuals that you all associated with YSL members, their family's home being shot or targeted?
Yes.
What was one of those addresses?
Ruby Harper.
Okay. And whose home did you identify that home belonging to?
A family member related to Mr. Williams.
And were you ever able to associate Mr. Williams with that home specifically?
Yes.
How did you do that?
I pulled his driver license picture.
You have permission to take?
You may.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Station Exhibit 540 Yankee. Do you recognize 540 Yankee?
Yes.
And how do you recognize 540 Yankee?
It's Mr. Williams' driver license picture.
And is that I'm sorry.
from 2015.
Okay. And is that what you pulled as a part of your investigation?
Yes,
And is that a fair and accurate copy of the license information that you pulled regarding Mr. Williams back in 2015?
yes.
Your Honor, this time the state would like to tender State Exhibit 540Y into evidence.
I object to the admission of that evidence as hearsay.
Overruled, admitted.
Your Honor, understanding the court's ruling, there's some personal information on a driver's license. We'd like it redacted.
Okay.
And we're not going to publish, we're just going to ask him to cite the address, Your Honor, but we'll redact it for later. What is the address on Mr. Williams' license?
3424 Ruby H. Harper Boulevard, Southeast Atlanta, Georgia.
And was that the target of one of the shootings between January 11th and January 19th, 2015?
Yes,
Now, as these shootings came in, were you trying to identify potential suspects of those shootings?
yes.
How did you go about doing that?
We would start with a police report. And with that police report, we would try to find whatever evidence we could with that, reaching out to the victims or witnesses, any car descriptions, suspect descriptions, and we would go from there. We would also reach out to our crime lab to see what shell casings was recovered. They would do what's called NIBIN, and NIBIN would tell us if it was related to a specific weapon or any other shooting incident that had occurred prior.
At any point in time, did you all go to social media in order to see if you can get any intel on what may be happening out in the community?
Yes,
Were there any particular social media pages that you all went to or that you saw that informed your investigation?
yes.
What were some of those pages?
Immediately after the death of Donovan Thomas, there was a fake Instagram, I believe, page created, Death to Snake N-words. And from that, it was almost like a play-by-play of what was going on, or those associated with Mr. Thomas. They basically were sending threats and telling what the...
Overruled.
That's the evidence rule.
That's,
Evidence rule. That's the evidence rule.
oh, sorry, best evidence. Do you have,
I had to.
all right.
Did
Go
you
ahead.
did you collect or did you all collect some of those posts?
Yes,
Thank you.
Permission to approach.
You may.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State Exhibit 546Y. It's 546Y, one of those such posts that came from that Death to Snake N-words page.
yes,
And is that a fair and accurate depiction of one of the posts that you saw in the early days after Mr. Thompson was killed?
yes.
You know, this time the state would like to tender State Exhibit 546Y into evidence.
Object to any hearsay in it. It's being used for the truth of the matter.
Your Honor, we're not offering any of the words in there for the truth of the matter, sir, but just to illustrate that that was the post that was given or that was posted on social media.
Object to any of the words on the page except for the post.
But
The death to snakes, if that's what the prosecutor's getting at. But any statement is being used for the truth of the matter, sir, and I object.
Your Honor, maybe approach, I think it might be a longer.
Okay, and that's for, sorry, 546Y.
Yes.
All right, and so that's admitted subject to what we discussed up here.
Okay. And let me ask you this, Detective Dennis, the post that you were seeing on this Death to Snake N-words page, did they have threats on those pages?
Yes,
All right. And were those threats directed at anyone?
yes.
Who?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
Kenneth Copeland, Woody?
Okay. Permission to publish the version that we discussed, Your Honor?
The first one,
Yes.
you may.
Now, as a part of your investigation, of course, indulgence will move. As a part of your investigation, did an individual by the name of Rayshawn Bennett come up as a part of your investigation?
Yes.
How did he come up as a part of your investigation?
At one point, his mother's house was shot up twice.
And when, as you were investigating the case, did you ever speak with Quindarius Zachary about anything that could have happened at those two homes?
Yes.
And did you know anything about those shootings prior to speaking to Mr. Zachary?
Yes.
What information did you have about those two shootings as a part of your investigation prior to speaking with Mr. Zachary?
It could be hearsay. I don't know. It's a broad question, so I'm going to preliminary object to hearsay and confrontation clause,
Okay.
unless it is narrow.
Overruled.
The weapon that Mr. Zachary was caught with in May of 2015 was knived back to the second shooting of Rayshawn Bennett's mother's house where she was shot.
In the first shooting of Mrs. Bennett's home, were you familiar with Kelvin Watts?
Yes.
What about Jamal Baines?
Yes.
And what about Jermaine Hardiman?
Yes.
How were you familiar with those three individuals?
They were arrested the day of that shooting.
And were those three individuals associated with any gangs?
They were associated with IF Gang.
At the time, was Mr. Bennett associated with any gangs?
IF Gang.
Now, I want to take you to some shootings that occurred on January 26th. Do you recall any shootings as a part of your investigation regarding this kind of gang war that occurred on January 26th of 2015?
Yes.
To your knowledge, how many shootings occurred on January 26th, 2015?
Several.
Were you familiar with, as a part of your investigation, Mr. Copeland being shot on the highway on January 26, 2015?
Yes.
And do you remember that case number was 15-026-0124?
I don't remember the case number off the top of my head.
Also on that same day was Lucci Mama's house shot on 1/26/2015.
Yes.
And then on that same day was Trevante Turner shot on 1/26/2015.
Yes.
And Trevante Turner back in 2015, did he associate with YSL?
Yes.
And the shooting of Trevante Turner, was that on 198 Stanhope?
Yes.
Let me ask you this. I'm gonna give you 3 APD case numbers. I want you to tell the jury which would be first, second, and third in the day, okay? 15-026-0124. 15-026-2672. 15-026-2801. Which one would have been the earliest of the day?
The one with the zero. Basically, our case numbers are broken down by the Julian date. The Julian date, January 1st, will be 001 and so forth and so on until 365 days. When they come into our 911 dispatch, whatever number that is in the course of the day of incidents, that's what the number is. And so based on those case numbers, the first number would have been first and second and third based on the case number, how they came in.
So would 0124 been the first for that day?
Yes.
Then 2672,
Yes.
and then 2801.
Correct.
And with 2672 and 2801, depending on the activity of that day, be pretty close in time to each other.
That's correct. And it basically resets at midnight. So, for example, if something, like today was the 16th, if an incident happened overnight on the 15th at midnight, it would become the 16th, even though it's pretty much close in proximity, it's the same time.
On January 28th, 2015, did you ever interview a woman by the name of Antrevia Smith?
Yes.
And what was your reason for interviewing with Ms. Smith?
Her apartment was shot up on Springdale Road.
And did that shooting happen on January 28th, 2015?
Yes.
And was that 2 days after the last incident we just discussed?
Yes.
And based on your investigation, do you know if she was the target of that shooting?
That would be hearsay and confrontation clause.
Overruled.
Our residence was the target. I don't think necessarily her, but our residence was.
And based on your investigation, were you aware of anyone else staying at her residence during this time period?
No objection, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Based on our interview of her, she explained that
That would be confrontation clause.
There would also be
Sustained.
impeachment. Your Honor, Ms. Smith testified and denied who was in her home.
So prior
Inconsistent statement.
Okay, overruled.
Mr. Watts was at her home during the shooting.
And did she tell you that Mr. Watts was there at the time during the shooting?
Yes.
And did she provide you during your interview with her a video that she thought that you should have?
Yes.
And what was that video?
Her neighbor had a camera set up in the window pointing outward. So it basically captured the drive-by shooting.
Did she provide you any other videos?
She provided us a video of Mr. Sledge Montunk and Quindarius Zachary basically taunting Mr. Watts and their rivals.
And I want to show you what's already been admitted as Stacy Exhibit 441Y. It should come up on your screen. Provided to you after she told you that Mr. Watts was in her home when her home was shot up.
Yes.
Now, after that, in February 2015, did you, as a part of your investigation, learn of a shooting involving Mr. Watts where he was shot?
Yes.
And then on that same day, on February 10, 2015, did you learn of 193 Hendricks Avenue being shot at again after Mr. Watts was shot?
Yes. Hendricks was basically, after most incidents, they would go shoot up Hendricks almost as a retaliation immediately or sometime thereafter.
And as a part of your investigation, who resided on Hendricks?
I believe Kenny Boo.
And do you know what, if any, relationship that did Kenny Boo have with Mr. Copeland or his family?
I don't.
Then, as a part of your investigation, did you also look into the shooting that occurred on February 19, 2015, the shooting involving Mr. Copeland, his child, and his child's mother?
Yes.
And do you recall if anyone was arrested for that particular shooting?
4 IF gang members were arrested for that shooting.
Sitting here today, do you remember who the 4 IF gang members were?
Octavius Franklin, Josiah Johnson, Bobby Hardy. Octavius Franklin, common spelling. Josiah Johnson, Bobby Hardy, and Josiah Johnson.
I think you said Josiah Johnson twice.
I could be missing one.
Okay.
Franklin Johnson, Fleetwood, Daviante Fleetwood. Is that 4? I'll try.
Now, did there ever come a point in between January and February, that some of the shootings, I'm going to say for lack of a better term, died down in the earlier parts of 2015?
Repeat that?
Sure. I'm going to ask between January and June, so I'll ask a different question. Between January and June of 2015, did there ever come a period of time where the shootings slowed down between January and June?
March.
And to your knowledge, do you know if in March of 2015, Mr. Williams was on tour?
I was told of that, but yes.
And to your knowledge, do you know if any of the YSL members were on tour with Mr. Williams during that time?
I'm gonna object to any hearsay.
Overruled. To your knowledge, do you know if any of the YSL members were on tour with Mr. Williams during that time?
Yes.
Do you know who?
Not but everybody, no.
Do you know some?
Yes.
Who?
Mr. Kendricks, Mr. Zachary, Mr. Stillwell Jackson.
Do you know if Mr. Copeland was on tour with them during that time?
I'm not sure.
Now I want to take you to April 2nd of 2015. Was there a homicide that occurred on April 2nd, 2015 that was a part of your investigation?
Yes.
Okay. Who was the victim of that homicide?
Mr. Rivers.
And based on your investigation and working up these shootings, do you know if he was a member of a gang?
He was documented as a 30 deep gang member.
Objection, confrontation clause.
I have a rule.
And I believe previously you talked about the relationship between 30 Deep and YSL.
Correct.
Now, as a part of your investigation, did you ever learn of a residence at 35 Oak Drive?
35 Oak, yes.
Okay. And based on your investigation, who resided or frequented that location?
Kelvin Treadwell, Mr. Williams.
Now, take you to April 12th of 2015. Did you, Sergeant Gaither, investigate the shooting of Dexter Montgomery?
Yes.
And during the course of that investigation, did you also meet with Walter Murphy?
Yes.
And when you met with Walter Murphy, did he talk to you about?
May we approach?
Yes.
Slipping. Sorry. Let me ask you this, did that address at Oak Drive have any significance to you as you began investigating all the retaliatory shootings from 2015?
Yes.
What was that significance?
In investigating the Dexter Montgomery shooting, it was told to us that that's
Sustained. Sustained.
Let me ask you this. When you, without saying what anybody said, why was it significant?
during our investigation, we learned that was where the suspects are.
Same objection.
Sustained.
Were you part of the interview with Quindarius Zachary?
Yes.
And in your interview with Quindarius Zachary, did he talk about where the guns in the car was taken after the murder of Donovan Thomas?
Yes.
Where was that location?
Oak Drive or whatever it is.
And was that your understanding of Calvin Treadwell's home?
Yes.
All right. And is that the same location that became relevant as a part of the Dexter Montgomery shooting?
Yes.
And with the Dexter Montgomery shooting, was there a suspect and later someone arrested by the name of Demas McMullen?
Yes, Nard.
And did that same name come up as a part of the Donovan Thomas murder investigation?
Yes.
Sorry, I need to stay by the mic. And in both the Dexter Montgomery shooting and the Donovan Thomas murder, was Mr. Nard suspected to be a shooter?
Yes.
Now, when you met with Mr. Zachary, was that in August of 2015?
Yes.
And during that meeting with him, did you speak with him about the Lil Wayne bus shooting?
Yes.
And at the time, was he able to provide you information about the Lil Wayne bus shooting?
Yes.
And was Mr. Zachary one of the people that you saw that night at the compound back in April of 2015?
Question asked and answered previously.
Sustained.
Now, the Lil Wayne bus shooting happened on April 26, 2015?
Yes.
2 days after that, on April 28, 2015, was there a series of shootings that occurred?
Yes.
What were the series of shootings that you investigated as a part of your investigation with this retaliatory shootings on April 28, 2015?
The 1428 Adele, 1903 Drew, and the Landrum Drive shooting.
Was there an incident at Club Crucial on that day as well?
Yes,
And as a part of your investigation, what occurred at Club Crucial?
Demiki and Garlington got jumped inside.
And based on your investigation, Demikion Garlington, associate or member of YSL?
Yes,
Did you investigate, you said you don't remember case numbers.
no,
Let me ask you about a series of numbers again. 15-118-0288,
okay,
15-118-0462,
okay,
15-118-0531, and 15-118-0588.
okay.
Would the 0288 be the first incident of that sequence?
Yes, if I can, I don't know if you write it down or something.
Keep in your head. Here's a pad. Excuse my hammer.
Oh, that ain't was.
Okay, so with 15-118-0288, 15-118-0462, 15-118-0531, 15-118-0588. Is this the order that they would have occurred in that day?
Yes,
So this would have been first, second, third, and fourth.
correct.
Where's it going? We'll come back to that chart in 1 second. When you met with Quindarius Zachary, was he able to identify people that he told you were involved in the murder of Donovan Thomas?
Yes,
And did you show him pictures to confirm who he was speaking of when you talked to him?
yes.
Permission to approach your microphone?
Yeah.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as 542 Y or 542 Yankee Alpha through Yankee J. Look through those and tell me if you recognize all of them.
While he's looking, you can get closer.
Yes. And let me ask a more specific question. As far as the shooting of Donovan Thomas, who did Mr. Zachary say was, and let me get more specific, those who actually were a part of the drive-by shooting?
Diamante Kendricks, aka Yak, Demise McMullen, aka Nard, Justin Cobb, aka Doo-Wop, and Shannon Stillwell Jackson, aka SB.
And it's 542YA, 542YF, 542YD, and 542YB, the images that you showed him to confirm those individuals.
Yes,
Your Honor, at this time, state would like to admit 542YA, YA, YB, YD, and YF.
Right, that's your minute.
Permission to
You may.
looking at 542 YA, who did Mr. Zachary identify that as?
Demonte Kendricks.
Okay.